All right, let's talk about the uranium market. Now, I know the bull case is everywhere, but we're going to dig a little deeper today. We're going to uncover a hidden clock that's ticking away inside this market. A clock that could tell us exactly when this incredible bull run might finally come to an end.
You know, if you follow commodities, the uranium story sounds almost perfect. A full-blown nuclear renaissance is underway, and it feels like prices have nowhere to go but up, up, up. But what if that whole story is missing a huge critical piece? What if there's an expiration date built right into the market's DNA that most people just aren't seeing?
So first, let's just quickly touch on the story you've probably heard a million times. It's simple, it's powerful, and honestly, on the surface, it makes a ton of sense.
The argument basically goes like this, right? Demand is absolutely soaring because of all these new reactors and governments extending the lives of old ones. The problem is, current mines just can't dig the stuff up fast enough, creating this massive supply gap. And since building a brand new mine takes like a decade and costs billions, well, the conclusion seems obvious. Prices have to go way higher and stay there for a long, long time.
It's a really compelling case. I get it. But there's a potential flaw, a huge blind spot in this logic. And it all comes down to one single core assumption everyone is making about supply.
So the entire bull thesis really hangs on this one idea, that uranium supply is inelastic. That's a fancy way of saying it can't respond quickly to higher prices. The only solution people think is building new mines from scratch. But here's the hidden reality. Supply is actually way more elastic than people realize. There's a huge overlooked source of production that can come online much, much faster and cheaper than any new mine.
So what is this secret source of supply? Well, it's not about finding new uranium. Nope. It's about reactivating what we've already found. We're talking about hundreds of dormant mines literally just sitting there waiting for the right price signal to wake up. 419. Just remember that number. This single number could change absolutely everything for the uranium market. And look, this isn't just some random figure I pulled out of a hat. That number, 419, represents almost 41% of all known uranium deposits on the entire planet. See that huge red slice of the pie? That's them. These aren't just potential discoveries. They are proven, permitted reserves just sitting idle. So, let's be super clear about what a dormant deposit actually is. We're talking about a mine that has proven uranium in the ground. It often already has the permits, maybe even some of the infrastructure. They were simply put into care and maintenance mode when prices crashed, below 40, even down to $18 a pound. They just weren't profitable. But at today's prices, it's a completely different story. And this, right here, brings us to the absolute heart of the matter. Bringing these dormant mines back to life is nothing like building one from the ground up. It's a totally different economic universe.
Just look at this side by side. It's not even a fair fight. A new mine can cost you up to $2 billion and take a decade just to get going. But restarting a dormant one, we're talking as little as 10 to 50 million bucks, and you could be up and running in just 1 to 3 years. That is the hidden mechanism for a rapid supply response.
And hey, this isn't just some theory. It is happening right now as we speak. Take Paladin Energy's Langer-Heinrich mine. It got mothballed in 2018. Then, in mid-2022, they decided to spend about $118 million to flip the lights back on. And boom, just 21 months later, it was producing uranium. With their costs around $30 a pound, at current prices, they make their entire investment back in less than 18 months. That's real.
This case study just perfectly nails the new dynamic, The demand story for uranium is absolutely real, but like the quote says, it is time limited. These 419 dormant mines, they are literally the sell signal that's already built into the market structure. So how does this all play out in the real world? It's not like all 419 mines come online at once. It's more like a series of predictable waves, each one unlocked at a specific price point.
Yeah, think of it as tiers. In that $70 to $90 range, we see the first wave, maybe 10 to 20 restarts. As prices start pushing toward 110, another 30 to 60 projects start looking really good. But the key threshold, what the source material here calls the flood zone, is above $110 a pound. At that point, you could see 100, maybe 150 deposits become profitable to restart, and that could be enough to completely flood the market and flip it from deficit to surplus.
And if you're thinking, no way, that's just a forecast, well, we have seen this exact movie play out before. Back in 2007, uranium hit $140. The story was shortage for decades, total euphoria. So what happened?
Over 50 dormant mines announced they were restarting. By 2011, that new supply was pouring into the market, and the price had already collapsed by more than half. And that was before the Fukushima disaster, which just poured gasoline on the fire.
So what does all this mean for us? It means we need to completely reframe the investment thesis. It's not about if uranium is in a bull market, it's about for how long. So on one hand, you have the simple bull thesis. A huge deficit pushes prices to $150 or higher, and the good times roll on to 2030. But on the other hand, the dormant supply thesis paints a very different picture. The deficit is real, sure, but it gets filled much faster. In this scenario, prices probably peak out somewhere between 100 and 120, and the bull market's clock runs out around 2027 or 2028, right as that wave of restarted production really hits the market hard.
Now, the good news is this supply response doesn't happen in secret. It leaves footprints all over the place, and you can track them. The key things to watch are the number of companies announcing restarts, companies raising money specifically for this purpose, and even an uptick in orders for mining equipment. These are your canaries in the coal mine.
This chart gives us a really simple way to track this. If we're seeing fewer than 10 restart announcements a year, the bull story is still very much intact. Between 10 and 30, things are getting a little more neutral. But once you see more than 30 a year, that's the signal that a supply flood is building. And where are we right now? Well, according to the data, we're tracking about 20 restarts per year. So let's call it a moderate signal, a yellow light. The clock is definitely ticking, but the alarm isn't blaring. At least, not yet.
So, if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. These dormant deposits don't mean the bull market isn't real. Oh, it's real. But what they do is fundamentally change its duration. They put a pretty definitive 2 to 3 year clock on this cycle before that elastic supply really starts to make its presence felt.
And that leaves us with one final thought. Those 419 deposits, they're not just a boring statistic. They are the market's own internal thermostat, its balancing mechanism. You could even say they're the bull market's built-in sell signal. The only question is, are you listening for it?